Today's video, we're going to talk about a feature called Track Report. Now, recently I've been learning to drive an open wheel for the first time, and last weekend I was at Silverstone National driving a Formula Ford car. And so progressively through the day I got better and I improved, taking advice and guidance from team members, and used the usual sort of way that I set up a view. So if you can see that I'm opening a test here, usual sort of measures open up that I usually use, that I'll have in my user profile, which usually involve things such as a measures graph, as you can see here. I usually show GPS in terms of position, and then I do a split report because I've created a track map here that's broken into sectors, and you can see that as it's lined up here. But having just watched a video from one of my fellow AiM enthusiasts, Matt Romanowski in the US, I wanted to be able to investigate more about the track report because it's a really good way of showing data in a different visual fashion. So one of the things that I worked on through the weekend, or actually just the test day, was carrying speed with a much lighter car, and really getting an understanding of where the grip levels were. So you can see here that even between two sessions, I was distinctly faster through the first corner here, highlighted in Sector 1. Sector 1 here represents Copse Corner at Silverstone, and you can see that I was able to carry a lot of speed through that corner and improve my time there quite a lot. But I want to be able to look at this in a slightly different way. So if you look up here, there's a feature called Track Report. If you click on that, it's going to open up a map, and the measures graph on the left-hand side changes a little bit. I'm just going to move the track map down here for the time being. Now, typically I'm using an AiM Solo here, so the most basic of information gathered by GPS. I've added some mathematic channels in here as well. But in essence, a very basic sort of view. And right now it doesn't tell very much information at all on this screen. So the first thing we want to be able to do is, if I right click on here, I'm able to go in and start looking at different pieces of information on the screen. So the channels still appear here on the left hand side, but there's different setup. And so right now you can see this is battery. Not very useful if you wanted to represent that on track, so I'm actually going to change that, and I'd like that to be GPS speed. I'm going to ask it to smooth that out in terms of a banding around the track for me, in terms of what's going on. And then I also want to have a look at a reference channel. So the second thing I want to have a look at is not only how fast I'm going around the corners, but how much lateral g-force I'm putting on the car, because in that instance I'm able to get an understanding of where the grip levels would be. And so as I build up courage and confidence in the car, I'll know on track over time in terms of how much understeer potentially I induce or how the car handles. But at the same time, it'd be good to see that in a number format. So I'm going to click on lateral. I want to be able to show everything on screen, so minimum and maximum that is there. These are just variables I'll explain in just a minute. And then if I click on apply and exit, the first thing you'll see is that the map has now dramatically changed. Now we can see different pieces of information. So this now has changed to GPS speed, red being the fastest, blue being the slowest in that instance. And there's some basic stuff that's on here that we'd all get. Fastest point on the track is the straightaway. And interestingly, on this particular measure that we're looking at, I'm actually faster here in this straightaway than on the larger or the longer of the two here. So obviously an area of development there to look at. But the other thing that's also started to show up is different information associated with what's happening in those particular corners. Now, one of the things you may have referenced is that I've already broken this into sectors, sector 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And so what it'll do is it'll show you potentially minimum and maximum of the channel you're looking at in that particular corner. So if I go over here to the channels on the left hand side, you'll see that there are triangles here. As it points downwards, that's the minimum for that particular channel, and if it points upwards, that's the maximum. So in speed, fastest point in that sector, or slowest point. And so right now I have highlighted here the fastest points in speed and where I am on track in that particular sector that is there. And so you can see that information on screen. In addition, what I'd also want to be able to have a look at is I'd like to be able to see what the maximum amount of lateral g-force is that I'm pushing on the car. So if I click that arrow upwards, it now shows me where on the track I'm also experiencing the highest amount of lateral acceleration on the car as well, which is useful to get an idea of pushing the car, especially when it comes to being able to compare with perhaps much more experienced driver, or looking at different conditions in terms of track conditions. Do things change if it's wet, or if it's dry, or if it's hot, or if it's cold? Many tracks that we're all aware of that we go to, the hotter it gets during the day, the slipperier it gets. And so this number may change as well. So this just shows you in a very easy visual representation now that if I hit the spacebar to get rid of the measures graph, that this is the slower of the 2 sessions that I showed. This is my 5th, I think, of 6 sessions in the day. That the fastest speed I was carrying through that corner was 80.2, and the most amount of lateral acceleration was 1.02 measured there. And you can see that also represented here if I hover over that particular area. But did I improve during the day? So I can also now click on the next lap, the next session after I take some counsel and advice, and you can see that I was able to not only increase my performance, but now my minimum quarter speed is 5 miles an hour faster. My lateral acceleration is 0.2 greater, so I'm getting to know roll speed, trust the car, and know what's going on. And I can also identify where the most amount of G-forces is felt. Now, I actually felt this as well as the person in the car being thrown around, and a very new experience overall, but it also shows where the most physically demanding parts of the track potentially would be as well in terms of the driver. So a very good and easy way of representing the data if you want a visual view, and now you can look at it in different ways, and this is just from the GPS unit. I'll show a video later on as we start looking at additional variables that will probably be posted in the next few weeks, which will also show information as to what if I had more than just GPS data. But for someone who wants to be able to see some areas of improvement or comparison, you can see this. Unfortunately, AiM won't overlay them on different sessions, but you can actually show laps within a session as well. But a very useful feature, and one that I'm probably going to use more and more as I start getting used to looking at the data in a different way and showing information in a different light. And so thank you for watching.